Good morning, everyone. My name is Danielle Lawrence. Thank you for joining our webinar this morning. I wanted to just kind of give an update to get started on kind of one of the reasons that we had planned to schedule this webinar. And that's because CARB recently sent a letter to school districts that had older school buses and school buses that have an unknown compliance status. And although we know that school buses generally do not have to be reported under the truck and bus regulation, CARB has requested that the schools submit records in the TRUCRS reporting system for all school buses that have diesel engines that have a 2007 or older model year. This information is going to help inform CARB's annual SB 1403 report that provides an update on the state school bus incentives and projected need for funding. So if you have any questions regarding the letter, if you did receive that letter, then you can email me, Danielle Lawrence at arb.ca.gov, and my email address is pasted in the chat. So, so you have that available. But I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Katie King, who is one of the presenters in today's webinar.
All right, good morning, everyone. So I should have probably done this before Danielle got started, but if someone also could just use the question dialog box to say that they can hear the audio and that the audio is coming through normally. That's on the right-hand side of your screen in the control panel. Perfect. Okay, we can hear the audio, so that's good. The other thing is we will be using that question panel for any questions you have today, so go ahead and submit those in writing, and we have Danielle here to answer that. Randy Opfer is also on the line, and he will be presenting the second half of this material today. And we have April here as well to answer any TRUCRS reporting questions you guys have throughout. We will also have a period at the end of this to answer any additional questions and verbally address any questions left over at the end. So don't feel like you need to send in the questions throughout. If you want to just focus on the webinar, that's totally fine, and we can address all the questions at the end too. So in this webinar, oh, one last thing, we do have the handout available also. So if you click on the handout dropdown, it says 1 of 5, and that's the printout for the slides we'll be going over today. So with that, we'll kick it off, and in this webinar, we'll be providing instructions for navigating and completing school bus reporting in the Truck Regulation Upload Compliance and Reporting System, which is also known as TRUCRS. The TRUCRS reporting system is for federally owned and private fleets of on-road trucks and buses that are subject to requirements under the Truck and Bus Regulation. This training is for fleets that have school buses and need to report their school bus information to demonstrate they're in compliance, either when applying for grant funding or to satisfy a request to report from CARB. If you need help with the compliance requirements and what steps you need to take to clean up your school bus fleet or other white fleet vehicles, Randy Opfer and I teach a compliance overview class for public fleet and school bus fleet managers, and that's called MS 523. That training is typically scheduled throughout the state, and currently it's available as a live webinar as well as a recording. If you're completely new to reporting, we suggest you follow along, but also request a recording of this video after it's completed so that you can refer back to it if needed. Once we're done today, this video will be available upon request, so just email Randy or myself for a link to the recording. It will also be posted on the CARB school bus webpage. If you do have any questions after the training is concluded, you can also call the diesel hotline. We'll have that information on the last slide. And just make sure if you do that to identify yourself as a school bus fleet. So today we'll be covering an overview of the school bus reporting. We'll then show you how to log into TRUCRS. We'll cover how to report company information and vehicle engine information. And finally, we'll show you how to complete your reporting. So we'll kick it off with the school bus reporting. Let's start with the school bus reporting requirements. Generally, school buses are subject to the school bus requirements of the Truck and Bus Regulation, but they are not required to report. Because reporting is not required, the system will not generate a certificate of compliance for school bus fleets internal record keeping for school buses is still required, even if reporting is not. So even if you haven't been requested to report into TRUCRS, you still are required to keep records internally. Even though the truck and bus regulation does not require reporting for school buses, most state grant funding programs do require fleets to report in order to be eligible for funding. As part of the grant application process, the local air district or the state agency running the program may ask the school bus owners to report their school bus fleet, including all diesel buses over 14,000 GVWR into TRUCRS in order to identify and verify compliance with the regulation. Additionally, as Danielle mentioned, you may have recently received a request from CARB to report the older school buses in your fleet. Information that must be reported includes owner information, bus and engine information, and compliance status. The information that is asked for in the TRUCRS reporting system would be the same information that's already required to be included in any internal record keeping. Now we'll show you how to log into TRUCRS. The first step to reporting is logging in. Sometimes this can present a challenge because people lose passwords. Staff that's previously done the reporting may have left the district. So we'll show you today how to log in and retrieve your password. One thing I want to make clear is that you do not want to create a new account if you already have one. Duplicate accounts will be flagged for staff review, and you will have to call before you can save any changes to your fleet. If you're having trouble, you can always call the diesel hotline for help while reporting. We will show you how to access the TRUCRS login screen and retrieve your password with the same username and email address on file, or if you're missing that information, what must be submitted to update the login information. If you go to any internet search engine and type in TRUCRS, not only will you find the login screen itself, but you can see the annual reporting guide and other useful tools. This is the TRUCRS webpage. Here you can find online reporting guides and paper reporting forms. If you scroll down, you can see that report button. If you click that, that's how you begin reporting. If you've not created an account already, you can click on Create New Account in the New Users column. If you do have an account, please enter your login information in the center column to access that account. We will start with how to log in for new users, and then we'll move on to troubleshooting if you've forgotten your information for an existing account. This is the first step to creating an account. We will do a walkthrough of how to create that account, so feel free to follow along as I go through the directions. After submitting information for a new account, you will receive an email that says the username you chose and a system-generated password. You can change this password after you log into the account. Also, something to note is this email will come from doors@arb.ca.gov. That's for the sister reporting system to TRUCRS that's used for off-road equipment, but it does apply for the TRUCRS reporting system. Because the DOORS system manages the logins for both DOORS and TRUCRS, if you already have a DOORS login, you can actually use that login to access TRUCRS as well. Existing users will log in using the center column. If you've just created an account, you will enter the credentials that were emailed to you. If you've forgotten your password, use the links at the bottom of the center column labeled existing users. There are two options here. One is change login information / close account, or forgot username, forgot password. Let's say we forgot our password. To retrieve your password, you must enter the username and email that was used when the account was created. You will receive an email from doors@arb.ca.gov with your password. If you do not have your username or the email address that was used when the account was created, you need to click the Click Here hyperlink on this page or the Change Login Information hyperlink on the previous slide. When you click either of those links, it will bring up this form, which you must fill out completely and return to truckers@arb.ca.gov. It may take up to 3 days for this form to be processed and for your account information to be reset. You will receive an email from TRUCRS staff once that paperwork has been processed. Now that we're back at the login page, I'm going to log in with my credentials. Please remember that the passwords are case sensitive. When you log into the system for the first time, you will see a note that says there is no fleet in this account currently. Click Add a New Fleet to begin putting your information in. If you've already added a fleet to your account, the account will list your TRUCRS ID, fleet name, and the number of vehicles you have reported. Here you will have the option to view or update your fleet or delete your fleet. There is a tab where you can check compliance status, but this is not applicable to school bus fleets because the system does not do compliance checks for school bus fleets. You can also log out in the top right corner. Here's the account settings page. This is where you can update the primary contact information and change your password to something unique. If there are going to be multiple people working in this account, make sure that the password is something that you feel comfortable sharing with whomever else needs to access the account. The reason for that is each account only has one login. Now we'll move on to reporting company information. Before you can start reporting your buses, you must report your company information. This will require that you have a unique tax ID. If multiple fleets report using the same tax ID, they will be flagged by our team for review. This section is asking for general information about the fleet. In addition to the fields shown on the screen, it will ask you for a designated contact person. This includes an email address, which will be used to send you any important information. Additionally, the contact person is used by our call center staff to verify the account if you call for questions. You must complete this form to save the information. If you have entered information such as a tax ID or a vehicle identification number or VIN into the database that has already been entered under a different account, your account could be flagged. If your account is flagged, you will need to contact the diesel hotline in order to assist you in accessing your account. I think I went too far. There we go. If your account is flagged, you do need to contact the diesel hotline to assist you in accessing the account. This is an example of when we were creating the test account and we entered 1234567 as the tax ID. The system flagged the account and we weren't able to add any vehicles until this was cleared with TRUCRS staff. Now, if we navigate back to the home page, we can see the account we just created and click on the View or Update link. When you sign in, you'll be taken directly to the Message Center. This is where ARB posts updated regulatory information. Please note that because you're reporting a school bus fleet, this information may or may not be relevant to your fleet. From here, you can click on Company Info. Be sure the contact information on the company page remains up to date. This includes your email address, mailing address, and phone number. If the California Air Resources Board needs to contact you, this is the information we will use. And then just scroll down the page to fill out the rest of that company information. So now we'll switch over to Randy and he'll cover reporting the vehicle and engine information.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Randy Opfer, and I also work at the Air Resources Board. I'm going to lead you through the rest of this presentation. We're going to start by reporting the vehicle and the engine information. There's a lot of moving parts here, so if you have trouble, Katie, I don't remember if you said this or not, but did you say anything about the recording yet? Did we talk about that?
Yeah, I mentioned that it's being recorded, and again, you can just email Randy or myself for that, and we'll also have it posted on the school bus webpage probably in a few days when the recording is generated and we can get that up.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. I appreciate that. I just wanted to reiterate that again because it is something that that you probably want to go through a couple times. The TRUCRS reporting system can be daunting for anybody that hasn't been in it before, and the recording will help you navigate that fairly well. So let's go on and discuss the reporting the vehicle and their engine information. To report your vehicle and engine information, you're going to have to enter some key information about the vehicle and the engine, including the VIN, the vehicle type, your school, engine family number, and compliance option. The vehicle type in this case should be school bus for each vehicle. At this point, the only way to be compliant is to select a compliance option. For school buses, these options would be either original equipment PM filter, a retrofit PM filter, or a low use designation. Keep in mind that low use designated vehicles must be less or used less than 1,000 miles per year. To add vehicles, click on the tab Vehicle Info, then click on the button for Add New Vehicle. The first piece of information you need is the VIN. The VIN required field in the system will not save information without it. TRUCRS will verify the VIN has the correct number of digits and is not a duplicate. If the information reported has an issue, you may receive an error message telling you to correct the information. If the information is correct and you're still receiving an error, you will need to email truckers@arb.ca.gov explaining the error message you are receiving. You will not be able to edit the VIN after it's saved. You'll have to email truckers@arb.ca.gov to do so. If you have your own vehicle identification number, you can enter that as well. Your own vehicle ID will allow you to more easily identify the vehicles in your fleet when you have your own system. You will enter the vehicle model year and vehicle make/model. Vehicle type. It's very important that you enter in bus-school for the vehicle type and that you're only reporting your school buses. Fuel type would be diesel, since the only buses you need to report are diesel fueled buses or school buses. Under registration type, enter the license plate and the registration state. If the gross vehicle weight rating is more than 26,000 pounds, you will select no, and it would be those buses that are 14,001 up to and including 26,000 pounds GVWR. If you have a bus that is right at 14,000 pounds, that's 14000 as its gross weight, or less, then you'd not need to report that bus. The final piece of information to report is the date purchased. If you're unsure about the exact purchase date and the bus was purchased prior to 1/1 of 2012, you may input 1/1 of 2012 as the purchase date. Next, we'll talk about reporting engine information. The first piece of information here is the engine family, and this can sometimes be tricky to find. The engine family number, may also be called the engine family name or emission family name/number, can be found on the emission control label as you see pictured here. It is a 10 to 12 character long number. It is required by law that you have a legible, intact emission control label on your engine while operating in California. If you do not have one, or you can't read it, or you can't locate the engine family number, contact the engine manufacturer, and the engine manufacturer can provide you with a new emission control label. In addition, they'll be able to provide you with your engine family number. The following link may help you find your engine family number. My understanding is that it can be hard to find the engine label, and especially on the school buses. All right, the link on this slide may help you find your engine family number. It can sometimes be hard to find the engine label, especially on older vehicles and school buses, but it is necessary in order to report. Next is the engine manufacturer, engine model, and engine model year. The engine model year may be 1 year behind the bus model year since the engine is manufactured separately from the bus. The field says select PM filter or extension for vehicle. This is where you will select the compliance option for the vehicle. At this point in the regulation, there are only a few compliance options still available. PM filter, original equipment. This option is for school buses that came with PM filters from the manufacturer. PM filter retrofit. This option is for school buses that have a verified aftermarket PM filter installed. 2021 low use exemption. This is the final option, and it is for school buses that operate less than 1,000 miles annually. You must enter the odometer reading from January of the compliance year you are reporting. Records for low use buses should be maintained internally, even though you're not required to annually enter the mileage in TRUCRS. If you select none from the drop-down menu, the bus will not be considered compliant. At this point in the regulation, all buses must have a PM filter or be designated as low use to be considered compliant. If the bus isn't following the low use option and doesn't have a PM filter, the bus and your entire fleet would be considered non-compliant. For retrofits, TRUCRS will ask you for some additional information about the filter that was installed. The installer may be able to assist with getting the PM filter information, but the requirement is to have a PM filter information label on both the engine itself and the retrofit. In the picture, you can see one that was installed directly on the engine. There should be a matching one on the filter. We've reached the last section in this presentation today, completing reporting. Let me go back up here. Once you've entered all your school buses, you're done with reporting. Since school buses are not required to be reported, the system will not calculate compliance and there will not be a compliance certificate available. If you're reporting to be eligible for funding, depending on the funding program you're applying to, you may need to print your vehicle list or provide a TRUCRS ID number on your application. If you're reporting to satisfy a CARB request, we will have access to your information and there's no further action needed unless specifically requested. This is the fleet vehicle list that can be submitted to demonstrate compliance. Quickly looking at the compliance option, CARB staff can tell if the fleet has any buses out of compliance or with the option of none. If you click on Compliance tab, you will see that the fleet is not eligible for a certificate. Even if we know the fleet is compliant, TRUCRS does not calculate compliance for school buses and therefore does not generate a certificate of compliance. This page does, however, show how many school buses are reported. All right, this concludes the webinar for today, except for questions. If you have any questions, please open the GoToWebinar control panel and submit them under the Q&A section. If you think of any additional questions after the webinar or run into issues while reporting, please call the 866-DIESEL hotline for assistance and be sure to identify yourself as a school bus fleet so they're able to provide you with the correct guidance. I can't tell you how important that actually is, because if you start asking questions of the call center staff and they don't know you're with the school district, they're going to try going down an avenue that's designated for non-school districts. So make sure you identify yourself that way. And